Arch Advocate show for Friday. I'm sorry I'm late, guys. I've really been having a hard time with this borderline shooting there. That's in Ventura County, and I've got a lot of friends there, and I've been to Borderline Bar and Grill. It's it says bar and grill, but it's what it really is a venue. It's like a lot of really famous bands and comedians, and like it's a place to go see a show, like a live show. I saw Jay Moore, the famous comedian, the guy who was Bob Sugar in the movie. What was that movie with Tom Cruise? Jerry Maguire, like the guy that played Bob Sugar. Like he used to be on Saturday Night Live. He used to have a sports radio show. He's been in a bunch of movies. He's actually a stand-up comic. In fact, Last Comic Standing, he created that. Like that's how he got to continue to pay his bills. But he's a stand-up comic, and I went and saw him there. Like that shooting last night at Borderline. I've been in that room, 3 years ago. I went there. It's just when stuff like that happens. There's a tendency when things like this happen is that it only happens on TV, and therefore it's not really real. Like there was that in the 1980s there was an organization called MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, that was formed, and this coalition of mothers are in large part responsible for the severity of punishments now that we have for drunk driving. Like in the 70s and like early 80s, like you could drive drunk and kill somebody. I have a friend, this girl I used to date when I was in the Marine Corps for just a very short time. I remember her brother literally got drunk and ran over a bicyclist, and that's pretty much the end of the story. Like he killed a guy and nothing happened. Because he went to court and he's like, yeah, I'm sorry about that, I was drunk. Like he played the drunk card, and back in those days, like believe it or not, you know what I mean? Like even for us that remember, it's still hard to remember. Like, oh no, there was a time when like you could like as long as you were drunk, like you could kill people with your car, and you could go before the judge and be like, yeah man, I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have been drinking, and the judge would be like, oh man, I've gotten behind the wheel a few times too. I guess we'll give you a pass. Those were the old days, man. But what I was getting at was like back then, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers used to have these ad campaigns where they would try to impress on people. Like, look, just because it's on TV, right? Because you're always told, like your parents are always telling you, like when there's a horror show on or something bad happens on TV, like your parents would tell you, like, honey, it's just a show. It's all pretend. It's all make-believe. And like the fact that it was on TV by itself, by the transit of property, meant that whatever you were seeing was fake, right? That was the mindset. And so Mothers Against Drunk Drivers came out and they had this entire television commercial ad campaign that was trying to communicate to people like, look, just because you see it on TV, you don't know those people, therefore like there's a tendency to think like, oh, it's not real because it's happening on TV. And as we all know, everything on TV is make believe. And there's a tendency to do that when we see mass shootings and all of these horrible things, and we see that there's literally a terrorist training camp in New Mexico where they are training people to carry out school shootings. We see these things and it disturbs us, but we kind of, I saw it on TV. And as everybody knows, everything on TV is make-believe. Like there is that tendency to let your mind go to that place, but when it's somebody when it happens someplace where you've been, that area, then it really, it brings it in closer. Like, oh, that night that I was sitting there at my table, eating my dinner and drinking my beer and watching Jay Moore tell jokes, somebody could have come in through the door, because the entry door, if you're watching a show, the entry door is behind you. You could get off, somebody could come in and get off 5 or 6 rounds before your brain realized like, oh, that popping noise, those are gunshots. you know, and in that time you might be getting shot, you know. So you kind of it puts me in a position where I can put myself in that room last night because I know the room, I know the parking lot, those images that you see on TV, like I know what that is. That's the front door. I know that place because I've been there. And it's disturbing because it's like, you know, the first thing that comes up is this young man was a Marine. And he served 5 years. Evidently, he was honorably discharged and whatever, you know. And you have to ask yourself, like, well, how does this happen? How does somebody go from being a normal person, you know, who lived out a long enough life to spend 5 years in the Marine Corps, right? So right there, it's like, you know, you can sign up for the Marine Corps when you're 17, but you're not going to get in until you're 18. And so add 5 years to that, now you're 23, and then add whatever, you know, I think the kid's 28. But it's like, dude, you're old enough to know, like, yeah, the world can piss you off, but, you know, go to the gym, go fishing, go surfing. He lives in Ventura. Go do something to blow off steam, and then you can come back and revisit the issue later. Like, how do you go from being, you know, living a normal life your whole life to going into a place where people, I think it was Tom Waits that was performing last night. How do you go from being, you know, going 28 years without killing anybody or killing innocent people to shooting up a room full of innocent people who've got their backs to you? The way that room is laid out, whatever the first amount of shots that he got off, it would have been shooting people in the back. Like that's just, I mean, shooting an unarmed person by itself is the height of cowardice. But somehow it's like shooting them in the back is like, no, there's actually one more level up you can go in cowardice. How does this happen? I may have told you guys, you know, when the attack in Nice, France happened, and those people drove that truck through a crowd of people that were celebrating and killed like 80 people. It was a lot of people. I was there 8 or 9 hours later. I was on my way to Nice when that happened, and I was coming up the coast and hitchhiking through the south of France, and it's a long story, but I was there, you know. And when I got there, I had the presence of mind to think to myself, like, okay, well, this is what's on my trail, right? Like, this doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, this is this is what God has put on my plate for at least for me to think about what happened. So I started thinking about it. I started thinking to myself, like, what kind of person, what would a person have to be to do something like this, right? Well, how does somebody make the decision to run a car through a bunch of people? How does somebody make the decision to shoot up a room full of people that are there just to have a couple of drinks and some food with their friends and watch, you know, somebody play some music? And I thought about that night in Nice, France, as the energy of that entire city was focused on one place. And I went to that place. I went to where that tragedy had just happened, just hours before. And then I went and I sat down in a cafe and I closed my eyes and, you know, ordered my coffee, and I closed my eyes and I put myself, in my imagination, I put myself behind the wheel of that truck and asked myself, who would I have to be to find myself in this place? And I thought to myself, well, I guess I would have to be very angry. So I thought about that for a while. I thought about anger and the nature of anger and how it is that I get when I get angry. Because I get angry about a bunch of stuff, right? As a matter of fact, there's people that not a lot of people, but there's some people that are like, oh, you're just an angry person. It's like, well, not really. It's mostly because of my face, right? everybody's always asking me, like, what are you so upset about? I'm like, I'm not upset about anything. This is just my face. It's just how it is. I don't know. But I've certainly been angry at people, right? I've been betrayed. I've been wronged, like just like everybody else, and you start thinking to yourself, like, well, what if I just took this person out? You know what I mean? Like, I started thinking about anger. And then to the point where I realized that no, it couldn't be angry or anger. Anger cannot possibly be the motivational force behind this guy driving this truck through this crowd, because anger has a focal point. If you're angry at a particular thing or person, usually a person, right? Timothy McVeigh is the one who's responsible for the most horrific act of domestic terror in American history. The bombing of the IRS building. Remember Timothy McVeigh? That could not have been an angry thing, like a focal, you know what I mean? Because anger demands that it be focused on a thing or person, mostly a person. And when you start killing innocent people, the randomness of it, it's like, well, no, that's not anger. That's not hatred. Right? Who would you have to be? Well, I can't be angry. I'm sure anger is in the mix somewhere, but that's not the motivating force. And I kept thinking about it. I thought, like, would I have to be somebody that could be influenced by somebody else? Would I have to be, like a religious zealot? Right? Because you hear people like killing abortion clinic doctors, and you hear about, Muslim extremists, detonating bombs in a bus full of children. Like, you hear about those kinds of things, and it's like, well, could that be it? If that's the case, then what do you have to be susceptible to that kind of indoctrination, where people would tell you, like, look, if you kill these innocent people, the Lord God Almighty Himself will be very pleased. In fact, by doing this is literally like the best thing that you can do to win the favor of your God. Right? And if that's the case, then who I would have to be behind that wheel and drive it through a group of people that were just celebrating, women and children and husbands and wives, mostly young people, but there was, that night in Nice, what would I have to be susceptible to somebody putting words into my ears of that sort, to where I would believe that person, where I would accept that kind of teaching? Which brought me to my next level of thinking, like, well, I guess I would have to be stupid. Not stupid as we've come to know that word as a quick insult, right? The word stupid actually has a meaning. There's a reason why we have that word as a descriptor of certain things. Stupid. Don't call your brother stupid. Don't call your friend stupid, right? Your parents tell you, like, oh, that's a no-no word. We don't use that word. It's like, no, we should use that word, but we should also learn to use it correctly. Because it is a word that's in the English language, and it is a powerful descriptor of something. Stupid. That's who you would have to be to be in a position where you could possibly kill a bunch of people out of misguided anger or whatever it was that caused that. You would have to be stupid. Perhaps because of your low IQ, because maybe your parents didn't give you your nutritional needs when your brain was forming. Perhaps you've been on all kinds of medication for many years. Maybe you've been literally taking stupid pills, right? I get mostly free health care from the VA because of my service in the Marine Corps. And when I go in, every single time they're like, here, take these drugs that affect your mind. Always. Like, whether I ask for it or not, they give me stupid pills. And I keep telling him, like, listen, I don't take these pills. When I take these pills, I get depressed, I get angry, I get sad, I get whatever. Like, they're literally stupid pills, and there's a lot of people on them. Every time I would take my medication that they would give me, I'd just be like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. This makes me feel like, when I take these pills, it makes me feel dumb and slow. You couple that with the fact that over 50%, I can't remember the statistic I quoted weeks ago, but over 50% of the U.S. population is bombed out of their gourd at all times. You look at what happened at Borderline Bar and Grill. How can this Marine, how could he come to that place? Was he on stupid pills? You know, can we ask that question? Was the Veterans Administration doping him up to the gills? And look, it's just like those stupid people in Nice, France, that mowed down all those people. It's like when I went into my mind and got behind that wheel, man, a chill came over me. A spirit. Like a tangible, like I could feel it. And the level of just not having my own independent thought and being having my ability to reason removed. You would have to sit behind that wheel, that wheel of that truck, and not have a mechanism in your mind for reason. Reason through this. Think about what you're doing. Are you sure these people are your enemy? Are you sure that whatever message it is that you're trying to convey is going to get through? Or is tomorrow morning, are we going to wake up and the whole world's going to open their newspapers or turn on their TV and they're going to see some asshole murdered a bunch of innocent people? But instead, you're sitting there thinking like, oh no, like everybody's totally going to get this. Like everybody's going to understand. They're going to look at what I did and be like, yeah, that guy had it all figured out. Right? You would have to have no ability to reason. You would have to be stupid. How do you go in and kill, 12 people, and there's like a whole nother 16 people they have wounds and they're sitting in the hospital right now, and some of those people aren't going to make it? Probably. Who are you if you do that? Who would you have to be to do that? How much distance would you have to put between yourself and your reason, your ability to reason? To think on your drive there to Borderline Bar and Grill, and the U-turn that you got to make to get in there, like it's kind of a weird way how you get into Borderline's parking lot and all that stuff. Like, and he lived in that area, so he lived like a 10-minute drive, but there's as many minutes as it would take him. It's like it's all because of the traffic lights. Like every time you hit a traffic light, every time you hit a red light, you didn't stop and think like, why do I think this is the right thing to do? Why am I about to go murder a bunch of take the lives of a bunch of innocent people? Or that kid, remember, what was it, 2 years ago? Something like that? Was it 2 years ago? That guy that flew that 747 or 777 jet. He was a pilot for a massive German airline, like American Airlines. Well, that's who he worked for, only for Germany. And he was so depressed and distraught and upset with his life that he decided that the proper action was to take a plane full of hundreds of people and fly it right into a mountain, killing himself and killing everybody. Who would you have to be to do something like that? Who would you have to be? This is one of the things that I'm trying to get at with this show is we have to take stock of what's happening right now. And we have to ask very hard questions. If you want to see what hard questions look like, go pick up everything that you can possibly read by on or by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was a guy that was living in Nazi Germany, and he had the presence of mind to write everything down. He wrote down everything that he saw. That's why I read that thing that he wrote that one time where he said, listen, there's evil and then there's stupid. And evil is preferable to stupid, because evil, you can still reason with it. You can write laws. You can build, you can change societies with sociological influences, and you can bring in religious leaders, and you can bring in political leaders, and you can bring in athletic directors to make sure that your young men are getting enough exercise, and you can teach them how to fight. There's a lot of things that you can do to shape a society and drive evil out. But stupid, there's nothing you can do about stupid. That's what Dietrich Bonhoeffer, remember that day when I read that whole thing that he wrote? That's what he was saying. He was saying, like, look, man, the German people, the most educated people on the planet, right? Or at least had been for a very long time, the most Christian people on the planet. Or at least had been for a very long time. Right? I'm sure the United States kind of took over for most educated, most Christian, most all these other things. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer was looking around going, how is this happening? What's happening here? I don't even recognize these people. I don't understand how these people went from being the most productive, the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Ingenuity, like the most productive people on the planet, the most educated. It's like, for God's sakes, we invented the printing press. Yeah, Americans created the automobile and the airplane, but man, we perfected it through German engineering. How has this happened? And one of his theories was that thing that I wrote that day, that there's evil, and then there's stupid. And stupid is far worse. Stupid is the lack of reason, when you have given up on consulting, getting counsel from your own sense of reason. Who do you have to be to get into your car with a Glock? I believe it was a Glock, a 9mm Glock, and a bunch of loaded magazines, with the intent, like when you go to your car, you pull your keys out, you stick it in the lock, and you unlock the door. You know what you're about to do, and then you open that door and you sit your butt down in that seat. You put your left hand on the steering wheel. Maybe you put your left foot on the clutch. You take that key and you stick it in the ignition. You know where you're going. Who do you have to be to turn that key? You drive out of your neighborhood, out of your suburban neighborhood there. You get to that first stop sign, you look both ways, and then you proceed. You go down a few more blocks, bang, timing's off, I hit a red light. And you're sitting there, and it's a Wednesday night, Thursday night, whatever. So, it's early. It's early in the night. It's 9, 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever. Like, it's Southern California. People are still up. Everybody's still awake. You're sitting at that red light. You're not the only one. You're in Ventura County. You're clearly not the only person sitting at that red light. You're looking around. You can see that there's other human beings next to you. Who do you have to be to continue on? When that light turns green and you say, yep, I'm gonna keep going. Right? Go through that light, it turns green, you come up to your highway entrance, your on-ramp, right? I'm going to get on the highway. I'm going to be on the highway for at least 2 minutes. And because of where he lived, like I can see where he lived and how far away, I can see the route that he most likely took to get to that bar. But this is the thing. It's like, it's on TV, but it's real. This thing happened in a place where I've been. You have to look and ask yourself, like, who would I have to be to do something like that, to keep going? To go through, to sit at those lights and notice the other families with their kids in the back. Or the guy that looks like, it's 8 o'clock at night and this asshole just got off work, that poor bastard. Light turns green, you keep going, knowing that you've got a gun in your waist and a bunch of loaded magazines. And you just keep going. And then there's the other problem. You get to where borderline is. And the thing is when you pull in, it's like when you get on the road the borderline is on, you have to go up, and then you have to do a U-turn to come back and drop into the borderline to the road that borderline's parking lot is on. It's a pain in the ass, and this guy's been to borderline many times, so he would have known, like, okay, got it. This is where I have to make the U-turn, and you know damn well, like, whenever it's time to do a U-turn, that light's always red. Now you're sitting there at a red light, waiting for it to turn green, so you can do your U-turn. And there's people, like, you can see, if you look to your left, you can see borderline. Now it's real. Now you're here. You're going to go into that bar and you're going to shoot up a bunch of people who are going to have their backs to you. Innocent people that are just looking to blow off a little steam and forget that there's a world going on around them. They just want to go listen to Tom Waits sing. And I believe it was Tom Waits. I could be wrong. But then you continue to go. You go through with it. You pull into the parking lot. You turn the engine off. You put your emergency brake on. Now it's the moment of truth. Like, at no point does reason come in to the situation. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What is it that I'm trying to communicate to the rest of the world? Why is it that I believe that by taking this action, the rest of the world is going to see my deeds and think to themselves, oh yeah, this guy had it all figured out. I get it now. I get it. I was wrong and you were right, Mr. Killer. What's his name? Let me look up this guy's name. Ian David Long was a Marine veteran who often visited the site of the shooting. At no point does reason come into the equation. Now, I talked about drugs, and look, you can get all conspiracy theory, right? You can go all Alex Jones and wear a funny tinfoil hat, but there's something going on. All of a sudden, out of 340 million people, half or 60% of those people are on medication. All of a sudden, it wasn't like that in the 1970s or 80s. At no point in human history has that fact ever been a fact until now. Until the last 35 years. Then you get into like, there was a CIA program called MK Ultra. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a fact. And MK Ultra was about mind control. That is also not a conspiracy theory. That is a fact. Where you get off into conspiracy theory is like, well, what did they learn? The CIA spent a lot of money, and all of a sudden they just shut it down. It's like, okay, maybe it was a big waste of money. Maybe that's why they shut it down. Maybe they opened Pandora's box and they looked inside and they're like, yep, okay, now we know everything we need to know. Who knows? That's all conspiracy theory. But what we do know is that shortly thereafter, shortly after MK Ultra was shut down, over 50% of the U.S. population is getting dosages of drugs. And again, you can sit there and say, yeah, but Pete, a lot of those are cholesterol pills and pills for gout, pills for allergies or whatever. Yeah, I know. But come on, man, over 50%. How many people are taking drugs that work on the mind? And was this kid on them, Because I know for a fact that if I call, because when you're a veteran and you get benefit, I get veterans benefits, by the way. One of the listeners, one of the ghost creeps, asked me one time, like, how do you make money? Like, how is it that you're just living in Albania without a job and all that? Well, I get very little money every month because of my service in the Marine Corps, and I also get free health coverage if I was in the United States for pretty much everything except for dental, right? Because of my service in the Marine Corps. And when you have those services, they assign you a worker, and they're social workers, but they only work for people like me. Right? They're not helping people get welfare and that sort of thing. They're social workers who work with veterans. And my social worker is in Ventura County. And I know for a damn fact that if I write to my social worker lady, who I'm in fairly regular communication with, I guarantee it, she knows this kid. I can probably tell you the name of his psychologist and where his office is. And I can tell you that if that guy was receiving veterans benefits for any reason, that he was getting drugs. He was getting gabapentin, and he was getting like a bunch of other things. I don't remember the names of them. Like they had me on like 8 different things at one point, to where I just finally just threw my hands up in the air. I was like, look, I'm sorry. I can't take this anymore. If I keep taking these pills, I'm gonna jump off of a bridge. It makes me sad. It makes me sad when I take these pills. I can't do it anymore. Because that's like, in theory, like that's how you would, because you have to ask yourself, like, how does somebody get so separated from their sense of reason in the United States? Those people that ran those people over in Nice, France, they were from Africa. They were from a really rough part of Africa, where when babies are born, their mothers weren't taking prenatal vitamins. And when they were born, they weren't given baby vitamins like the ones I give my son every day. And so when those babies who grow up in third world areas like that, they're not, their brains never form. There's no reason to believe that those people ever had a sense of reason to begin with. That they lived their entire life just not knowing that, like, you could actually just sit down and ponder your actions and think to yourself, like, oh no, this is wrong, this is stupid. I don't know why I started thinking in this line of thought. Man, I'm really glad I caught myself, and now I think I'm gonna go down to my local church or my local hospital and say, look, man, I need help. I'm really struggling in my mind. I'm thinking all of these really horrific thoughts. Can you help me out? Can you help me? You know what I mean? This kid grew up in the richest part of the world in the history of the world. Everywhere from the border of Mexico at San Diego to San Luis Obispo, right, which is like, I don't know, 400 miles. That's the richest part of the world, and it's also the richest part of the world in the history of the world. Nobody starves to death in Ventura, Orange, Los Angeles, or San Diego counties. Nobody. We don't have people who starve to death. We don't have if a young mother is pregnant and she doesn't have any money, like, she gets prenatal vitamins. And when she has that baby and she still doesn't have any money, she gets baby vitamins for free. We don't have people growing up in America where their brains just don't form. This young man had a sense of reason, and somehow he was separated from that sense of reason. And now there's a bunch of dead people. Coincidentally, on the same night that the truth about what's going on in Broward County right now is happening. You can say, like, that's conspiracy theory. It's like, yeah, I know. And I know that the one thing has absolutely nothing to do with the other. I know that. But what I also know is that there is a massive pattern forming here. It was the same thing with the Vegas shooting. It was the same thing with, like, all, the Parkland shooting. It was the same thing with Sandy Hook. Like, every single time these things happen, there's always some sort of really nefarious thing going on in the government. Now, that could be because there's always something really nefarious going on in the government, and it just so happens that, you know what I mean? Like, there's always something. There's always something with the government. So to say that, like, oh, this happened while the news is being broken right now, that in Broward County that they are quite visibly screwing with our election process. You could look at it like, well, yeah, I mean, obviously they're trying to cover it up. It's like, well, okay, well, number one, who's they? And number two, do you think that there's at any point, these days, do you think that at any point, the people that work in the federal government aren't trying to get over? They're not trying to, pass some law that screws everybody, and they just want to do it under the cloak of darkness. It's like, dude, it's always going on. So I don't buy it, but it's like, at the same time, how are there so many crazy people? People who are so lost and stupid. And when I say stupid, I mean people who have somehow detached themselves from their own sense of reason. That's what stupid is. And that's what stupid does. It acts unreasonably. Now I'm watching what else is happening. The thing over at Tucker Carlson's house. You guys know I love Tucker Carlson, and you know that because I'm critical of him. Right? I love his work, and sometimes, like, he says stuff that's just like, I would have gone in a different direction with that. But a whole bunch of people went to his house and threatened his wife and his 4 children. That's, to me, I'm looking at that and it's like, if that was my house, if I was Tucker Carlson, only me, right? A United States Marine, somebody who understands the Second Amendment, like understands, you can talk all you want, but ultimately, if the guns come out and I have to defend myself, then I'm not going to go to state court. I'm going to go to federal court to plead my case. And then I'm going to drop the Second Amendment, and your little state's rules about gun ownership, they're not going to apply. Because the Second Amendment is a federal matter. And my right to protect myself is a federal matter. My responsibility to protect my family is a federal matter. And if that were me, as Tucker Carlson, only with my brain, and I was home, and somebody was threatening the lives of my wife and my children, people would have gotten shot. And I would have gone and spent the night in jail, and then I would get out of jail the next day, and then I'd go to court, and I'd go before a judge, and I would say, these people were outside talking about pipe bombs. And we know where you sleep in the middle of the night. And they were assaulting my door, and they cracked my door. Your Honor, I was afraid for the lives of myself and those who are under my charge. People would have gotten shot, and people would have gotten killed. And then that would have been the end of that. And I turn on the Young Turks, and they discuss it. And I'd like to give, as much as it hurts my feelings to say this out loud, the Young Turks actually hit a couple of notes that were dead on. Old Chunk Yogurt says, you know, you guys, this is stupid. This isn't right. You can't go over to people's homes and threaten them. Right? That does not fall under the definition of protest. What you did was an act of terror. You terrorized those people. Now you're guilty of terrorism. I was happy to see that, but there were obviously a couple of things in there where it's like, come on, guys, don't do that. Anna Kasparian, like the one hot chick on the left, she comes out and says, well, obviously, you know, this happened because Tucker Carlson is a racist. You think Tucker Carlson is a racist because he says hurtful things about people coming into our country illegally? That makes him a racist. That's what I'm saying, people. You people over there at the Young Turks, just keep talking, keep doing that. You're just losing people left and right. Nobody thinks Tucker Carlson is a racist. Nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks that. Nobody but you. And then at the very end, it was really bizarre that old Chunk Yogurt, he says at the very end, he says, look, now that you people have terrorized Tucker Carlson's family, you have to understand that up until tonight, up until you people chose to do this, all of the violence was coming from the, quote, right-wingers, end quote. And now you're guilty of it. And I was really shocked by that. Not that he said that, because I know that that's the kind of tripe that comes out of the Young Turks, but it's the thing that haunts me is like, who are you saying that to that you believe that there's somebody on the other end of that believing that? When Eric Clanton clocked that guy in the head with a bike lock, what are you saying that you believe that Eric Clanton is a right-winger? When the guy went to the baseball field and shot Steve Scalise, and the Lord God Almighty intervened and somehow nobody died. That dude didn't just squeeze off one round. He shot that ballpark up and nobody died. That is a miracle. But I digress. You think that guy who voted for Bernie Sanders was a Bernie bro? You think, okay, so that guy, in your opinion, is a right-winger because you just said all the violence is from the right-wingers. When President Trump won the office and those Antifa guys lit that Muslim guy's taxi or his limousine on fire. He's just a small business owner, just some Muslim guy that came to America, wanted to live the dream, but saved up enough money to go to the bank and put a down payment on a nice limousine so that he could drive fancy people around so he could make that extra money. So he can make more money than just driving a cab. He drives a very fancy cab. What happens? A bunch of left-wingers light the damn thing on fire. Are you saying that those people that lit that on fire were right-wingers? Like, who is it that you're talking to, Cenk, that in your market research tells you that when you say those things that there is an audience who has no other source of information other than you? Which is the only way that you could think that saying something like that would resonate with anybody. Is like, the only way that would work is if they only received the news from you. Like, they never turned on CNN, Fox News, InfoWars, Ben Shapiro, all of these different sources. Like, so your audience, they don't listen to anybody but you, because that's the only way you could tell that kind of a lie and have it work. And if so, that's your audience. That's your audience. They're just in this little bubble where they just believe whatever the Young Turk says. And the Young Turk said all of the violence was coming from the right wing. All of it. It was baffling to me. So naturally, I thought to myself, Well, perhaps I don't understand what right wing means. It's a very good, like, people call me right wing, and it's like, I guess, I don't know. Am I? I mean, I'm certainly not a left winger. Does that mean that I'm a right? I don't know what right wing means. So I had to look it up, and according to Wikipedia, far right politics, according to Wikipedia, far right politics are politics further on the right of the left-right spectrum than the standard political right, particularly in terms of extreme nationalism, nativist ideologies, and authoritarian tendencies. So I go, okay, like I hear that, but you still, in that explanation, all you said is the far right, it is not the far left, or the center right, the normal right, the normal left, or the far left. It's just, take those things and it's just not that. Well, you still haven't told me what it is, so I read on. The term is often used to describe Nazism. Oh, that's really weird, because the word Nazi in the 1930s, the literal translation of that is National Socialist Party. Socialism. That's what a Nazi is a socialist. Comma, neo-Nazism, which I don't understand how that's different, seeing that neo just means new, as in not born in the 1930s. The term is often used to describe Nazism, neo-Nazism, fascism, which is, remember, fascism was that political party was formed by Mussolini. And he called it the fascista. Fascista. And fascista is a word in Latin, and it means a bundle of sticks. As in, you can break one stick by itself, but if you put a bundle of them together, they are stronger together. You know Hillary Clinton's little moniker for her, presidential run, stronger together. That's what fascism, that's literally what fascism means. It literally means stronger together. So let me read this whole sentence to you over again. The term is often used to describe Nazis, socialists, Nazis, new Nazis, fascists, which means stronger together, neo-fascism, which means new fascists, and other ideologies or organizations that feature extreme nationalist chauvinists, which is, okay, that's weird, xenophobic, and let me just break down what xenophobic means. Xenophobic is a fear and distrust of all that which is perceived to be foreign or strange. Xenophobia just means afraid of everything. Racist, anti-communist. Okay, so let me see if I understand this correctly. To be far right, if you are an anti-communist, then you are far right. Well, then that's everybody in America, except for a very small group of very loud people. We are all against, we have an act of Congress that's called something like the Anti-Communism Act of Congress. We are all anti-communists. And according to this, far right means anti-communist. It's like, okay, well, I'm definitely anti-communist. Are you saying I'm far right? And every time the Young Turks say something like, oh, it's another far right person. You mean a person like me? Because according to this here, the term is often used to, the word far right is used to describe Nazism. But wait a minute, I'm anti-Nazi. I'm anti-Nazi because Nazis means National Socialists, and I'm not for National Socialists. And I'm not for the new National Socialists. And I'm not for fascists or the new ones. I do believe in chauvinism, but I'm not xenophobic. I'm not racist. I am anti-communist. Or reactionary views, which is like, well, I don't know what that means. Basically, everybody, this word far right has become like the neutral, like everything's far right. Everything's far right. Remember that guy sent those bombs to all those politicians last week or 2 weeks ago? And the Young Turks came out and said, oh, this guy's a far right guy. It's like, no, he was a Democrat. He was a Democrat. He voted, he changed his voter registration in 2016. What do you mean far right? Are you saying that guy was a Nazi who hated communists? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that sort of thing can work if you don't have reason. If you don't use your reason to slow the mechanism down and say, okay, oh, hold on. What do you mean by that? What do you mean, Cenk Uygur? Cenk Uygur, I believe is the correct way to pronounce his name. And I apologize. When I want to insult you, I'll call you Chunk Yogurt. But this habit of calling everything far right terrorism, it's like I started going down the rabbit hole, and I looked up, like, because they keep saying that the majority of terrorist attacks over the last 30 years has been by, quote, the far right white men. And then I heard Ben Shapiro, and he came out and he said that's actually accurate, but it also doesn't account for the fact that every weekend in Chicago more people get killed than like the rest of the nation every 10 years when it comes to terrorism, right? So I started looking into it, and what I came up with is an organization called START. It's called the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism. STARTT. START, which evidently is being paid for by the Department of Homeland Security. And what I learned is that from 1990 to 2018, there have been a total of 166 attacks by people who are considered white supremacists. And their other statistic is that there's been another 51 acts of terror that were also committed by, wait for it, other far-right extremists. So, okay, so now we know that the definition of far-right means white supremacists. Right? I'm looking at this study, and it's 1997, a homicide in Washington State where a white supremacist murdered a fellow white supremacist because the perpetrator found out that the victim was Jewish. Right? So there was a Jewish white supremacist who got found out for being Jewish, and his fellow white supremacist was so enraged by that he killed him. So how did that enter into this particular study of domestic terrorism? Homicide in Pennsylvania in year 2000, where a white supremacist kills his Jewish neighbor as a part of a shooting spree. Okay, so he goes on a shooting spree, but because his neighbor who was Jewish also got killed, right? This is now a right wing, like this guy's a Nazi. It's like, no, he was just shooting at people. He was just shooting up a bunch of people, and he happened to shoot his Jewish neighbor. Subsequently, the offender shot at a synagogue before killing 5 Asian Americans in a series of shootings at the town. Okay, well, I mean, homicide in Missouri, year 2002, where a skinhead shouted anti-Semitic epithets while beating a victim to death he mistakenly thought was Jewish. Right? Like, I'm looking through all these things, and it's like, okay, so number one, there's no statistics in here about terrorism where the motivation was not religious, or these young teenagers who get connected to some, neo-Nazi ideology, and it really, because they didn't have a father in the home, man, it really makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? Everything in here is either white supremacist or other right wing. So every time a Muslim commits an act of terror, it's like, oh, that's right wing. It's like, wait a minute. So everything's just right wing now, and you're painting people like me into a corner where it's like, you're calling me a terrorist. You're saying that I have something in common with these people, that I am separated from my sense of reason, that I'm capable of walking into borderline bar and grill and shooting a bunch of innocent people in the back, or getting behind the wheel of a moving truck and driving it through a crowd and murdering 80 people. I don't appreciate that. And I don't appreciate the misdirection and the false news that comes out when Cenk Unger, who has an audience of at least 300,000 people on a regular basis, right? Here, I already closed it out, but I was making jokes about what their actual audience is, because you can look at their videos and see how many plays they get. Like, you can see the numbers. But when you come out, and even if it's to 300,000 people, and you say, guys, you shouldn't have attacked Tucker Carlson's house, because up until tonight, up until this very moment, all of the violence that was being committed because of politics, because of religion, because of whatever, it's all been happening from those awful conservative Christian white or black conservative people, the Republicans, the conservatives, the people who are anti-authoritarian. You know what I mean? I love authority. I hate authoritarianism. It's the ism that's when things start going horribly wrong. I love social, right? I love society. You slap an ism on the end of social, and now all of a sudden you have big problems. I love community. Nobody's a bigger fan of community than me. There's many, many people who are as big a fan, but nobody's a bigger fan of community than me. You put an ism at the end of community, and now 100 million people are going to die. I love authority. I hate authoritarianism. If Donald Trump moves to nationalize the news because it's all fake, and he moves to nationalize it, guess what? I will then be an enemy of my leadership, because that's authoritarianism. Donald Trump making jokes and kicking Jim Acosta out for his rude and inappropriate behavior, that's not authoritarianism. That's authority. It's different by a country mile. And it breaks my heart, not that Cenk Unger said that, Cenk Uyghur, I apologize, Chunk Yogurt. The fact that he said that bothers me, but that's not the thing that really bothers me. What really bothers me is that there's people out there that are so stupid that they're not going to remember the bike lock basher Eric Clanton. They're not going to remember the Bernie bro who shot Steve Scalise. They're not going to remember the people that lit that Muslim cab driver with his limousine on fire. They're not going to remember that woman who was assaulted in New York, verbally assaulted by that young man a couple weeks ago. They're not going to remember any of that stuff. Because for some reason they just sit and they listen to the Young Turks, and they don't spread their. They're not like me, where it's like, yeah, I don't believe a thing that the Young Turks say, but I'm still gonna watch, because I need to have a well-rounded opinion. I need to take in what everybody's thinking, because then I have a better shot at coming to the correct conclusion. But if I just sit there and listen to Sean Hannity, I'm going to turn into a complete nutcase. If I only listen to Ben Shapiro, I'll probably end up converting to Judaism and forsaking bacon. You know what I mean? I'm going to listen to the Young Turks, not because I like what they have to say, but because number one, I need to know my enemy. But two, I need to know, maybe they're going to say something that I have not yet considered. And then I see something like this where it's like, hey, up until tonight, up until you guys, attacked Tucker Carlson's family and somehow miraculously didn't get a bullet in your ass, up until tonight, all the violence was done by Pete Dobson, host of the Arch Advocate Show, because he's on the right. He's a right-winger. He's anti-communism, man. He's one of the bad people. See how dangerous that kind of thinking is? And it works on stupid people, because obviously we are living in a world full of stupid people. Stupid, so stupid in fact that it's deadly. You want to know how to get behind the wheel of a moving truck, drive it through a crowd of people and murder 80 people? I'll tell you exactly. It's not anger and hatred or religious supremacy or anything like that. It's stupid. It's a cold, dark place where you don't have reason. You want to know how to walk into Borderline Bar and Grill, shoot a bunch of people that are there to maybe boogie down a little bit to some music, maybe eat some ribs and some fries, have a cold beer, maybe tell their girlfriend that night that, hey, I have chosen and you're the one. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I just wanted to wait till we went to the Tom Waits concert. You want to know how to walk into a place like that, shoot a bunch of people in the back? Stupid. That's how. It's cold, it's lonely, and man, it's a lot of work to pull it off. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to be separated from reason. You know what I mean? I don't know how, like, I would have to be on a lot of drugs. You know what I mean? I'd have to be a completely different human being. And we are living in a time where stupid is rampant. Just like Germany in the 1930s. That's what Dietrich Bonhoeffer was saying. He's like, beware people, there are stupid people about. And a lot of people are going to get murdered because of it. So I guess the point is, don't be stupid. Don't be stupid, right? And don't think that word stupid is an insult. The word stupid has an actual meaning. I'll tell you what, let's figure out, just before, I'm going to let you guys go now, and I hope you have a good weekend, but before I let you go, let's find out what Merriam-Webster has to say about the word stupid and what it actually means. Stupid cinnamon, stupid Merriam-Webster. Thank you, Mr. Webster. Given to unintelligent decisions or acts. Acting in an unintelligent or careless manner. That's A and B. Here's number C. Lacking intelligence or reason. Marked by or resulting from unreasoned thinking or acting. Senseless. That's what the word stupid actually means. It is a word in the English language. It has a place. It has a power unto itself. That's what that word means. A stupid person murdered those people. A stupid man shot Steve Scalise. A stupid man hit that other innocent man over the head with a bike lock. Stupid. And if you want to see what happens to a society when everybody just loses their sense of reason and everybody turns stupid, you have not too far back in history to look. You just go back to Germany and everything that happened right afterwards, the rise of communism in the Soviet Union and in China, and in Cuba, and everywhere else that had happened, in Laos, in Cambodia. That's what stupid does. It murders people. It's careless, it's senseless, it's unreasonable. And it is to be feared even more than evil. Right? Evil can be conquered. You don't need to be afraid of evil. You just have to be righteous and strong. Stupid, on the other hand, it's unpredictable. And I recommend that you read that entire thing that I read that time on the... I'm not going to read it to you now because it's long, but go pull up Dietrich Bonhoeffer's thoughts on stupid. And if you don't have nightmares from it, then you didn't read the right one. That's the show for today. If you want to support the show, I would appreciate it. I need a microphone. I need a green screen. I need a bunch of stuff, man. I need 4 plane tickets back to the United States, a house. I got to get out of this country. Europe's very close to going to war again. You got the UN talking about creating their own, not the UN, I'm sorry, the EU. You got the European Union And Macron there in France talking about we need to have a European Union military. It's like, oh boy, here we go. I mean, it's been coming to this, right? Like, if you want to know like where all this stuff is heading, it's heading to war. That's like, if we do not change our ways and change our direction very quickly, we're all going to war. Like that's, you know what I mean? There's 10,000 people moving to the southern border of the United States. You know what that's going to end in? Bloodshed. That is the only possible outcome. You got the European Union talking about, you know what we should do? We should form our own military. What do you think, Germany? A unified Europe where Germany is the head? How many times in the last 110 years have we seen that exact same scenario? How many times in the last 110 years? I'm sorry, when did the First World War happen? I just want to remind everybody, Germany conquered the world twice in the last 118 years. Twice. Germany conquered Europe, which was the world, twice in the last 118 years. And after it had been done, it was done conquering it, then Germany was the head of it. And now we have the European Union. Congratulations, Germany, you went for the hat trick and you won. Now there's a European Union and Germany's the head of it. Now they're talking about forming a military. Where do you think that's going? There's only one outcome, all right? And it's war. Unless people wake up and use their reason. You make the stand like Poland has. Make the stand like Hungary has and said, listen, you people, no, we're not doing any of that. We're not doing that. Actually, let me correct the way that I just said it. We're not doing that again. That's what Hungary and Poland and a couple of other nations have declared. They're like, we're not doing this again. We're not doing this again. You step your foot across that borderline, Germany. You come across that border. We're not going to wait for you to get to Krakow. Right? We're not going to wait for you to get to the city. We're going to open fire as soon as you come over. Because the last time we let you people cross our borders, millions of people died. We're not doing that again. So there is voices of reason out there, and it's those people. It's the people like Tommy Robinson, and it's people like the leader of Hungary and the leader of Poland, and these people. It's these people that they are the way seers. They're the people who go forward and oftentimes get killed. And it's these people that remind people like, wake up, wake up, wake up. You need to use your reason again. I know that we've had, 70 years off where we had relative peace and not Poland, obviously, because they were under communism until the 80s. But, I know that you've had 30 years off. You got soft and you got complacent and you got onto your Xbox or your PlayStation, and that's, it's all fine and good, but it's like that time is over. Time to get back to work. Time to use your brain again, use your reason again. Because if you don't, then stupid will take over. And stupid likes to kill people a lot. Okay. All right. I have a lot more to say about this stuff, but I'm sorry about my tone. I'm just tired of seeing this sort of thing happen, because it's like when these things happen, you tend to reach in your mind for reasons. Because that's the right thing to do, right? Like, you have a mind, you're not stupid, so you reason. What could possibly be the reason? What could possibly be the reason to go into borderline and shoot up a bunch of innocent people? What could possibly be the reason? And your brain gets to work. Well, maybe he just broke up with his girlfriend. Maybe he just lost his job. Maybe this, maybe that. It's like, nope. The problem with our way of thinking is exactly that. We're trying to reason, and the reason is that person had no reason. That person had no ability to reason. He was stupid. You understand that? You understand the flaw in our thinking as we look at this and we try to put the puzzle together? But there is no answer. The flaw in our thinking is that we're using reason to try to solve a puzzle where the missing piece is itself reason. Anyways, if you want to support the show, like I said, I need a bunch of stuff. I need a microphone because I know that this sound is really bad because I had to move my studio into a bigger room where there's nothing on the walls so that the sound just kind of echoes. I need a microphone. I need a green sheet, a couple of other things so that I can improve the quality of this show. So that's the show for today. If you want to support the show, go on to Patreon on my website, archadvocate.com. Archadvocate.com. Also, if somebody wants to run the website, I would be eternally grateful if somebody could volunteer to do that. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, and if you want to just send some money, just on a one-time thing, you can do that on PayPal. That's also on the website, archadvocate.com. Thanks, you guys, for listening. I know that you guys have heavy hearts today too. So that's what we talked about today. You guys have a good weekend, man. I love you guys, and we will talk to you on Monday.